It's official, AMD are dropping driver support for Vega and Polaris GPUs. Kinda. I find this news pretty disappointing because I think Vega and some Polaris GPUs are still quite viable in 2023. You've probably seen this in the news recently, but as a Vega 56 and RX 580 owner, I thought I'd chime in and just share my thoughts on it, as I do have mixed feelings about this. Have you ever gamed on a Polaris or Vega graphics card? Let me know in the comments down below. My source for this topic is an article on AnonTech, which will be linked in the description. However, last week AMD basically confirmed what everyone was thinking, and that is the fact that there will be slowing down driver improvements for both Vega and Polaris graphics cards. A list of these graphics cards include the Radeon 7, the Radeon RX Vega series, the Radeon Pro Duo series, the Radeon 600 series, the RX 400 and 500 series, and all of the G Ryzen APUs, which some of them AMD are still actively producing and selling, by the way. While they're not making these GPUs end-of-life legacy status just yet, like my R9 380 behind me, AMD will be effectively slowing down driver improvements for these graphics cards, and it might be a bit later where you get your new game-ready improvements, and you might not be getting any future features like FSR 3 and features like that. AMD has already pulled Linux support for these graphics cards earlier in the year. Although this was a open source Vulkan driver sort of thing, so I'm not sure how many gamers that actually affected. But back to Windows, and AMD has started to slow down driver updates for Polaris and Vega cards since September this year, as they went 2 months without a driver update until November. As you could probably notice, Polaris and Vega cards were stuck on version 23.9.2 for almost 2 months until AMD dropped a driver update this month. So that's why it's basically confirmed everyone's suspicions, because everyone basically knew this was coming, but it was just a matter of time until AMD officially announced it last week. The biggest issue I have with this is they are still producing APUs which are using Vega. Both the 5600 and 5700G have GPU cores which are built on the Vega architecture, and guess what that means? The iGPUs in these APUs will follow the same path as their discrete cousins. Yes, that's AMD dropping driver developments for APUs which are only 2 years old, which has to be some sort of a new record for a GPU manufacturer to drop full driver support within 3 years of launching a product, which I think's not very great on AMD's behalf. Yes, I know not that many people are going to be playing new games on an APU, but what if a new esports game, which is supposed to be really easy to run, comes out and AMD don't have any driver improvements for it, so it runs much worse than what it should? This is why this is kind of a problem. I also think a lot of the discrete GPUs built on these architectures are still pretty reasonable in 2023. Like, I've taken a look at the RX 580 8GB, rest in peace because that GPU died on me, and the RX Vega 56. Both of these GPUs are still quite capable within their own right, but they won't be able to play newer games effectively thanks to a lack of driver development for these titles. So that's what's happened, but what will happen to Polaris and Vega cards from this point onwards? And the first thing that I think we'll see in the next couple of months is massive reductions in used pricing on both Vega and Polaris cards, especially on used sites like eBay and Facebook Marketplace. I say this because the people who have been holding on to their Polaris and Vega graphics cards over especially the crypto mining crisis, maybe this is the final push that they needed to finally upgrade their graphics card to maybe a newer RDNA GPU, maybe something like the 6700 XT, which is a GPU I will be taking a look at very soon here on the channel, so make sure you stay subscribed for that. This might be a good option if you're in the market for a cheap esports gaming graphics card, because the Polaris and even the Vega cards are very good at budget esports performance, so you might get a very good deal in the upcoming months. Other than these price drops, I wouldn't really expect anything in the coming months. As they are mature architectures in terms of stability and performance, I don't think any further driver developments will improve either of these areas. So performance in current games should relatively stay the same. Just for a moment, I want to play devil's advocate. With AMD not focusing on Vega and Polaris anymore, they can shift their focus towards the RDNA graphics cards. Here they can focus on stability and performance and just prove them Nvidia shills wrong that AMD have bad drivers and this and that, when AMD, in reality, their drivers are perfectly fine. However, they could be a bit better with sort of the optimizations of them, because AMD graphics cards, they do tend to, out of the gate, not perform at their best, and then they get very good throughout their lifespan, which is called AMD fine wine. They could also get drivers out quicker for newer generations as well, as they have been a bit slower than Nvidia for getting out day one game ready drivers. They have sort of caught up over the past couple of years, but they used to be a lot slower than what they are now. Also, if AMD move Polaris and Vega over to a different driver package, this could free up some space in the drivers for people who are playing on RDNA graphics cards. I think the driver size now is like, what, 600, 700 megabytes just for GPU drivers, which is quite a bit of space, but then again, people probably have 1 terabyte SSDs in their system these days. And then again, on the other hand, look at the size of new AAA games, they're absolutely huge. So, should you be worried if you've got a Vega or a Polaris graphics card? And to be honest, I don't think you should be worried. This mainly affects newer feature support and newer game optimizations, something which you're not really going to be benefiting from that much on a Polaris or Vega card. Also, newer driver improvements do bring out more stability and more performance, especially on AMD graphics cards, over a GPU's lifespan. But to be fair, Vega launched in 2017 and Polaris launched in 2016. I think they're basically at the max performance level now, and I don't think AMD could get anything out of software to make these GPUs run faster in games. Because of this, your Polaris or Vega graphics card will still perform exactly the same as it is right now in your current games. This is just going to affect new releases in the future. Also, if security vulnerabilities are a concern for you, don't be worried, because AMD have said they will still be patching any security flaws in their driver packages for Vega and Polaris GPUs, so that's not going to be a problem there either. With that being said, we arrive at the end of the video. I would be lying if I said I wasn't disappointed that AMD are dropping support for Polaris, and especially Vega, as Vega is quite a bit newer, and Vega is still being used and sold in 5600 and 5700G series APUs, which I still can't get my head over. And this is especially annoying as Nvidia are still supporting their Maxwell lineup of GPUs, which date back to 2014 with the GTX 750 Ti. That's almost 10 years of driver support, which is pretty incredible from Nvidia. But on the other hand, I do understand why AMD is doing this. They can't support older generations, especially Polaris, forever, as this will just take up resources and developer time away from the RDNA GPUs, which is what they really want to be developing driver optimizations for. The only thing I don't agree with is the fact that they're dropping Vega. I think Vega is still a pretty decent GPU architecture, especially on the desktop with the 56 and the 64. And I can't get behind the fact that they're dropping APUs, which are only 2 years old, and they're actively selling and producing 5600 and 5700G series processors. So the fact that they're dropping even the APUs is just not something I can get behind. So basically, Polaris, yes, I kind of get that. Vega, not really. I want to end off this video saying, if you've got a Vega or Polaris graphics card, I wouldn't be too worried about this announcement. AMD have said if there's any critical security flaws or any just critical flaws in general with the driver package, they will fix it on Polaris and Vega, so there is that. You just won't be getting any new driver optimizations for newer games, and you won't be getting any new features either. So the games that you're currently playing will perform exactly the same as they are right now. So if you enjoyed this one, there are 2 other videos right up here, which might be right up your alley. And if you got this far into the video, I'd like to say thank you for sticking around this long, and maybe even consider liking the video and subscribing if you really liked it. With that being said, I'll catch you in the next one, and have a good day.